Hello, I'm David Kain and welcome back. Now we're going to get to a presentation by someone that you probably already know and love. His name is Steve Roessler, and he's the Chief Evangelist Officer of a CRM company that is a real trendsetter in the industry. It's called DriveCentric. So Steve's going to talk about artificial intelligence. So Steve, if you would, take it away.
You got it. All right. Thank you very much, Dave, for having them. So real excited to present this topic, and it's coming off of a case study we did from the Capital Auto Group, which is actually, David, you actually know those folks up there in Salem, Oregon.
Yes.
They've been doing a lot of studies with DriveCentric. And one of the things we're going to talk about is how they leverage AI. We all know AI is a very hot topic in the industry. I think we all have maybe some head trash about, should we use it? Should we not use it? People sell cars. So this is really going to help you push the envelope a little bit to think a little bit differently. But I think we all agree that over the last several months, this is not what's going to be at your store for the future. You're not going to have a lot of people standing out there waiting for a customer. I always love to say this would be somebody that's out there waiting for their lunch to be delivered, because that's just not the future. So if we go out there and say, well, what's the trend that's happening? Well, more internet leads are coming in more than ever. And what we have to worry about is, are we getting that engagement? And unfortunately, with many of the tools we all have at the dealership, those communication tools are probably outdated to a certain degree, and we have to leverage tools to get those customers on the phone. So we're going to actually talk about what are those two big differences that we're talking about. Well, I want you to look at this cartoon and think about, what is this cartoon represent to your dealership? Picture the boat as the dealership, and the general manager is the big guy steering the ship, and he's got his fishing pole and everybody else is following him. And we're saying, hey, all the fish are biting at the bottom. Well, if we're using tools like email and phone calls going out there, that's not where your customers are biting today. So we have to think differently as far as what we need to do to get those internet leads talking back to our store. So when you go out there and we ask dealerships, what is your focus? Are you doing the task to do the task when it comes to business rules, or are you doing the task at engagement? And those are two different ways of operating your store. So the whole idea we're going to talk about with artificial intelligence is it possible to leverage technology so your team does less fishing and they do more catching? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But over the last several months, what have we learned during this whole COVID thing? If you talk to all the dealerships like what we've been doing, they say we've been more profitable than ever, we sold less cars, and we did it with less staff. So as we're coming out of this, how do we keep that model going at the dealership so everybody is more profitable? Well, I went out there and I spoke to NADA about 2 months ago now, and NADA is actually doing the same type of study research we're doing. The idea that you go into a dealership and you say, as a general manager, or just looking at what your store's expenses are, think about this: 59% of what we spend at the store is going towards people. Okay, so does that mean we're efficient or not efficient? And can we leverage technology to maybe trim down our headcount? Maybe we don't need as many people because of the trends we're seeing during this whole COVID thing, so we could be more profitable. So if we go out there, we ask all the experts out there, the NADAs of the world, NCMs and Toyota, even David, for example, how many leads, if we were just talking about cradle to appointment for a BDC department, how many leads can somebody handle as a human? So here's what the experts say, and we go out there and just say, let's all agree that that number is 150 per BDC agent. So if we were to look at and think about, well, if we could get technology such as artificial intelligence, and it could help improve our efficiencies and our engagement rates, could we keep our staff at a lower head count? So let's think about expanding the leads from 150 to potentially 250 as a baseline. And then we'll talk about what that would look like. But if you kind of look at how many leads you get per store, this is what it could be per head count. So instead of, like, we're looking at 600 leads, which is, let's say, a ballpark average of some stores, do you need 4 BDC people, or could you get away with a little more than 2? Okay, with technology of artificial intelligence, working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to help you get that engagement with 250 leads per BDC agent. So this is where the hard part is for us as dealerships, because people sell cars, and I'm going to agree with everybody on this. People do sell cars, But I want you to think about, if we always think in terms of, if I get artificial intelligence, I don't need people. And I don't want you to think that, because if you use technology to get the engagement of these internet leads, you need the people to be better responders now than ever. So we shouldn't have to fight with artificial intelligence and technology. Let's learn to work with it. Now, if we look at the importance of why this is for the internet and take a look at a study that Digital Dealer did just a little over a year ago, most BDC people quit after, it says right there, 2 attempts, but 3.4 phone calls it usually takes from an external BDC to get the engagement of the customer. But the BDC agents will tell you it usually takes about 6 to 8 attempts. So are we quitting too early at the dealership? And that's going to be the magical question for each and every one of you listening to this webinar. So what we did at DriveCentric, because of that model, what we wanted to look at is look at stores with technology of artificial intelligence and stores without artificial intelligence. So let's look at, in the month of August, we looked at 21 stores that did not have technology, and we looked at 8,500 leads in that month. And if we were to go out there and say, how many activities per internet lead did we do? Well, would you believe humans, that's human intelligence right there, HI, got 13 activities per internet lead. Now, the reason why I show that, and that's important, because this is measuring text, email, video, phone calls, everything. So I want you to think in terms of, if it takes like 4 or 5 attempts to get that customer engaged, take that away from 13 and you only have 8 conversations going back and forth. So that makes a big difference. So now let's take a look at what happens when you get technologies working, like artificial intelligence working with your humans. Looked at 21 stores again, 19,500 leads in August. And would you believe there's a total of 19 activities per internet lead? And I bet you David would definitely agree that more activity probably increases results. Would you agree with that, David?
Most definitely.
Most definitely. So if we could get technology to throw the balls over the fence to our people to do better responders, now I'm communicating, text, email, phone calls, whatever the way the customer wants to communicate, let's communicate on their channel. So here's an example of how technology is being used at the Capital Auto Group. I'm going to hit play right here. But what you're looking at, this store was actually closed, and you can see the actual conversation going back and forth. Pink is the artificial intelligence known as Genius in the AI. So after store hours, the AI is getting the engagement. She's going to tee it all up for the BDC agent when the store opens up. But if you take a look at the total, look at the total. The AI got 7 activities. The BDC agent did 12 texts, 2 emails, and 1 phone call. And more importantly, the delivery time was 2 days. So if a store is closed or the store is on and people are off work, just think about how technology can leverage having that customer intrigued with your store by doing what's called conversational marketing and teeing it up right to your BDC agents. So that's the art of it. So now if we go out there and take a look at the Capital Auto Group and what they did, I'm going to focus on several things in this study, but I'm going to highlight, obviously, for what this talk is artificial intelligence. So in 2018, they were on a different CRM, and they weren't using all the right forms of technology to get that high level of engagement, which equals a different closing rate. So they were measuring phone calls and emails, which I think many of us still measure. 100 phone calls a day, 50 emails a day. Makes my head explode thinking about it. But the text to email response, okay, text to email ratio was about 50%. I think we're all human on this call, and I think we would all agree that texting is the #1 form of communication in America. So we need to highlight that texting should be used more often. They didn't do any video, and they didn't leverage artificial intelligence, and they were close at 7.2%. If we move ahead, as far as what we challenged them to do, we asked them to do all these other activities, but they added artificial intelligence. Okay, so how do you work with the AI? The thing that what most people do is they're working their work plan. A work plan equals an activity. They minimize their work plan, and they're measuring for every BDC person to do 120 total activities. I don't care if it's phone, text, email, video, whatever. You're going to do 120 activities, Mr. and Mrs. BDC, or schedule 8 appointments per day. If you don't do that, you are dinged 1% of your pay that day at the Capital Auto Group. So we take a look at the results, and again, you can see what they did from a video perspective, never doing video, never doing as much text, email. They're obviously shifted their communication. The artificial intelligence at this point was getting 27% engagement. If we fast forward now to May 2020, the AI was getting a total of 75% engagement because what we did, at least at DriveCentric, was improve the AI, doing other things, and that's what's causing a higher level of engagement. Now, when you get 75% engagement, David, I would think you would like to think that's a huge amount of engagement just from technology. And, you know, if the fish are jumping, David, put up a net. Put up a net. Okay. The fish are jumping. I got to be better at pliers. That's what this is telling me. All right. So take a look now at the data of these months that we measured the right activity with the technology. So we just look at May, you'll see what their May internet leads were, and they engaged, David, you'll love this, at 70%. Wow. And this is a great illustration to kind of see exactly what we're measuring at the store. So 70% engagement of the number of leads was 1,228. And what this means, I got to make sure I explain this, is you can only schedule at most 1,228 appointments, because I can't schedule an appointment with somebody that doesn't talk back to me.
Yes.
All right, so that's what that means. So I'm engaged. So what did I convert to an appointment? 639. So that means for every 2 engaged leads, they schedule 1 appointment. Very powerful. And then you can see what their appointment shows are delivered, and obviously their increased closing percentage over this 18 months has been remarkable. So we go out there and say, this is technology working at its best, but yet we hire BDC people. And what are we hiring people to do? You're doing more fishing than you are catching is the problem. You're spending this kind of money. Your engagement may be between 30 and 35%. You're asking everybody, you know, those 100 phone calls, texts, they're only working business hours. And who knows what kind of mood they're in. And let's face it, they all cherry pick, right? So if you get technology, number one, she won't cherry pick, since I'm going to start there, but she becomes an assistant now to the BDC. That's what we have to think about. We hire BDCs to be assistant to the salespeople. Technology like artificial intelligence is an assistant to the BDC. So if you know that the AI is going to text and email, have your people focused on phone calls and personalized video. That's the way you got to work at it. Know the way the communication is happening between technology, and then structure your workflows much differently from your BDC so they're not overstepping each other's communication. So now, if we go out there and look at the total number of engaged customers, right up here for Capital Chevy, what they did with this technology is they turned the artificial intelligence 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. They didn't do that till the month of October. Okay, so if we look at what the number of leads was by a gentleman named Kyle there, that's what he did in August without the technology all turned on full blown. If you go out there and look at how many leads he got, this was the first time in history, and David, you know this group, that a Chevy BDC rep beat a Toyota representative in engaged appointments, shows, and deliveries.
That's remarkable. Great job.
It is. It's really fascinating. They're getting ready to turn this on for the Subaru and then soon the Toyota store. So if we ask, what is their process now with technology? I want you to think about this from a workflow perspective. If we have technology of AI and the AI gets engagement via email, reply via email. If they reply via text, reply via text. And David, I know you say this quite a bit in your meetings, and we say it as well, is texting is a great way, and so is email, to get an on-ramp, you say, right, to get on the phone. So sometimes we have to do some conversations, earn that customer's trust, because we know 90% of customers don't trust us. Engage that customer several times with texting and say, hey, is it okay if we get on the phone for 5 minutes? And that's what I was saying. Down below, regardless of the way the AI gets engagement for this particular BDC, they reply on that channel. That they don't make an unnecessary phone call, but they always, David, you'll love this, send a personalized video, no matter what. So if they don't get engagement, I'm still making the phone call and I'm still sending a personalized video. So it's a really good workflow to just kind of understand how their stores are leveraging technology. And at the end of the day, this is a culture change. And the thing is, when you get technology and you're getting higher levels of engagement, your responses equal a total activity per team member. And that's why I would challenge each of you to think about is, what is our total activity? Or are we doing the task to do the task? They say 120, each team member's doing 160. And when you get the fish you're biting at your dealership, less people leave and more people make more money. I think we would all agree there. Yes. But the thing that I think you have to do is you have to learn to strategize and work with the AI. It does take time, but if you start working with it versus against it, it's a totally different mentality. But each and every one of the BDC people can surely make more money and have a more successful store. So at the end of all this, let's think about how we can have technology to catch more fish so you could be more efficient. And you may not be able to have as many people in your BDC, which is great, because if you have the right people in the right places, take on more responsibility, more leads, and obviously they get paid more, so you have less turnover. I think all these things work hand in hand to have a more successful culture at the dealership. So if you ask me, is AI a friend or a foe? Hey, she or he is a friend to your store. We just have to learn to work with the technology we have around us to make us all better as dealerships. So with that, I will open up the floor. I will quit sharing my desk. Was I right on time there, David, or what?
You were perfect, Steve. Thank you very much. And you've left plenty of time for questions. And I've got some that have already come through my brain. But I'm going to let the audience use the chat feature, and they'll be able to request information about this. So, all right, and there they are, just as advertised. Right. So, gentlemen, if you would, Denny, is there anything he said in that presentation that you'd like to add a little perspective on?
Just the working with the artificial intelligence. That's the biggest thing. So in the beginning for me, I was a hater, and I can't even describe to you how much I hated it. To this day, I don't find it a friend of mine, like Steve says, but you cannot deny statistics, right? There's a lot of people I work with that I don't like, but if they're producing. That's the reality of it. So the AI produces for us, but learning how to work with it is probably the biggest challenge that a dealership needs to understand, and understand that you need to manage the artificial intelligence the same way you would manage one of your reps, or it is going to get out of control and say things you don't want it to, and then you're not going to like it. But learn to love it, learn to use it in your office, and it'll work for you.
So it's really great to have that perspective, Denny. And what would be great is if you and I could just do a blockade and make sure that Steve doesn't get to talk live on this.
No problem. Mute him out, David.
No, what I wanted to ask you about is, obviously you guys are power users of the DriveCentric tool. One of the comments that I heard about DriveCentric, and Steve has for years beat the drum very loudly. We've kind of been a drum line, if you will, for engagement, and we've done presentations about it together. We've really focused on it. I know that's really critical to you. One of the comments I heard about DriveCentric as a CRM from one of our clients was, the reason why we like DriveCentric is because our team members like it. So many CRMs are kind of drudgery. There's too many buttons and too many clicks that they have to do to get things done. Not to ask you to do an endorsement, but could you give us, Steve, close your ears, could you give us kind of a perspective of what it takes to have a good operating CRM to work in harmony with your overall team?
Yeah, Drive's made it really easy, honestly, with that part of it. I would compare it to, because, I'm sorry for all you Android guys out there, but I compare it to Apple and Android, right? So with Apple, you click something, you get it. With DriveCentric, you click it, you get it. You don't get 9,000 options after you click something. So especially for the younger generation, which in our experience has been most of our BDC reps, the tool is so much easier to train on. It takes me about 2 days to get someone live on DriveCentric, and with our previous CRMs, it would take me over a week to get them to understand and be able to use the program. So for what you're asking is, people love it. Yeah, they love it because everyone is engaging with customers. They're not just doing tasks. So if you're engaging with customers all day long, of course your day is going to go fast. Your turnover is not going to be as much, and your employees are going to be happy because they're making money, not just pounding away at tasks.
All right, we do have a question.
All right.
Yes, the question is, I'm interested, what CRM did you have prior to Drive?
Dealer Socket.
Okay.
Well, that's a good one-word answer. Closed-ended question there.
Socket, technically, though, it is just the one word, from a marketing standpoint. So, but also I will tell you that Brian Toole, who Steve, said
Yep.
long live Android. So.
Oh yeah, Tool is an Android user.
I got
The one
those
thing-
guys too around here. I get it. I'm not smart enough for it. I'll just put it that way, I guess.
Yeah. And I think too, just to, as we go out there, I mean, we learn how to do better in business every day. And I think, when we go out there, we always show what our technology does. And I think, having experiences like literally how Denny and, other people that have been going with Drive and getting the technology, we just have a due diligence to make sure people understand how to work with the technology so it doesn't upset people. And sometimes, as we are growing, that's what we have to do as a better job. And people like Denny being able to share his experiences so people don't have to relive those is very important to everybody. So I appreciate Denny and all the work him and his group has done to really help support us getting the message out there on how to work with stuff.
And Steve knows me well enough, and I've met you a few times, David. I wouldn't support something I don't believe in. That's 100% true. If I thought Drive wasn't good, we wouldn't be on it anymore.
Oh yeah, no question. We have two questions. We'll hear Chelsea's and then Becky's.
So someone asked about making sure that, with the text messaging and, Steve, can you kind of elaborate, or Denny, maybe you can answer part of this as well. Do you guys with Drive send out automated opt-in, or how do you guys handle getting that engagement with the opt-in text message?
So I'll grab it from our standpoint, Steve.
Go
So from our standpoint, our opt-in is automated when the AI is on 24 hours a day. If the AI isn't on, then we're sending the opt-in manually. So for instance, our Chevy store and our Subaru store now, when Steve's video was there, our Subaru store is now live 24/7 with AI. The AI immediately sends the opt-in the moment the lead comes in.
Yeah, and the only thing I've just put out there is if the customer does not reply back yes, I mean, many of the CRMs, they have their own different version of the text opt-in. Ours is very clean, just says, hey, Steve Roessler here at ABC Motor, is it okay if I text you? Please reply yes or no. So if the customer says yes, then game on. If they say no, they're completely blocked.
Okay, cool.
Interesting. Becky?
Question was asked, is anyone using the AI tool for service status follow-up and appointments?
Right now, Drive does not do, well, from a service perspective, we do like what's called a reputation management tool inside the CRM. So it'll do closed ROs. Again, being a younger company, we're not in the service area quite yet, but that's where we are looking to go here in the very near future. But I don't want to sell vaporware. I'm not here to sell vaporware, but again, it's just, we're a very good CRM. We focus there, but yeah, when we get into service, absolutely AI will go there.
Good. So this is kind of an unusual request. Someone said, what kind of hair product do you use, Steve? I almost think it's serious.
It's called peacock cream.
Yeah. I mean, my gosh, he calls me Peacock. You call me Woody Woodpecker. No, it's actually the hair paste is called, believe it or not, Fat Boy. And then I use Big Sexy Hair. So all the ladies know Big Sexy Hair.
So if you've ever seen the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou with George Clooney in it, a fellow Kentuckian, he was really fixated on hair products. So I can appreciate what you're talking about. So Steve and Denny, if you would, please just tell us a little bit about pulling all this together. So, we can have great effort on phone calls. We can have great effort on texting. We can have video. I literally don't know if you could have gone any longer without saying the word video. And ultimately, just the human intelligence. So how do you pull it all together and do that? Because HI is not necessarily being emphasized in this situation, but we definitely want to make sure that we cover the HI element of it.
Yeah, Denny, if you want to start on your side, then I'll follow up.
Sure. So yeah, you really have to, when you're using the the AI, you really have to be in the mindset of telling your team that the AI is not going to do the work for you. It's going to help you set the work up. So, and if you don't have the backing from the top down to use the program correctly, then the program isn't going to work correctly. You know that, David, you've probably given your processes out to 1 million people and they look at them once, maybe implement it, and then don't make anybody do it. So if you can't follow the process, use your artificial intelligence like it's supposed to be used as an assistant, not your crutch, then it will work properly.
Excellent. Well, good.
Yeah, the one thing that I'll just point out, and I know Denny's got some more that he could definitely share on his workflow. Oh my gosh, there's Brian.
Hello, David. Good to see you.
The surprise visitors.
You jump in, Melissa.
The one thing that I think that's really cool is, with Denny and the way he sets his work plan is they don't do any follow-up after 14 days. They let the technology do it. They focus on the meat and potatoes, which is the first 14 days. So, and that's one of the things. I think if we go out there and we look at what the customers are wanting, and I think a lot of the speakers said it today, it's all about the customer experience. Video happens to be a big part of it. While I think, we all still want to get people on the phone, I think technology out there has the ability that if you are not a known entity on the phone, that you could go right to voicemail. You can go on your iPhone right now with iPhone, I think it's iOS 13. You can go on your iPhone settings and you can program everything to go to voicemail if you are not a known entity. So you're fighting technology and you're playing basically a Russian roulette game to see who you have worse chances of getting somebody on the phone. And then, emails, you got to worry about spam. But yeah, video with what Denny and his group do and a lot of other stores do is they send that video to show that they're dealing with a person. And I think that is what customers want based on the research we've done. Denny, if you want to elaborate on your business rules on the 14 days and stuff, that'd be good for them.
Yeah, we just took every study out there from Toyota to Subaru to NADA to digital to everything. And we just listened, really. I mean, if you can take all these studies and if you don't believe them and you don't listen to them, you don't want to try them, then what's the point in sitting through everything and listening to it all? So we really listened to the stats and said, okay, let's focus on the 98%, convert as many of those as possible, and then we'll throw that old broken net out at the old 2% and see what it grabs. But yeah, it's just been so much clearer to our reps on what they need to do when they're not trying to reach out to somebody on day 90 or day 70. It's mind-numbing to them to do that kind of stuff. So if all I ask them to do is for 14 days, you go hard, they all will do it.
That's good. So Becky, as much as I'd love to ask the question, I know that Dan Sayer is throwing some stuff out there for us to respond to him with the Anderson Auto Group. So thanks for the question, Dan. We're going to email that to him, and we're going to make sure that you get your question answered. Denny,
Poor Dan. Oh,
I'm Dan. Can you go with that?
Denny and Steve, well, it was a progressive question. It started as one, then he thought you answered it, and then he said, well, what about this? So we're going to make sure that we give him the full airing of that when we've got more time. But guys, you all were wonderful. Steve, thank you very much for those hair care tips.
Sure.
Denny, I can't thank you enough for joining us for this. That was really a gift to the audience. So thank you very much.